You may be aware that earlier this month, Elon Musk said that he, or Tesla rather, would remove radar from its autopilot system. And as you can see from this little bit of video I captured, there is absolutely no reference whatsoever to the camera system helping with autopilot. However, turn to the Australian page and it's still there. So a bit fascinating what's going on here. Perhaps once again our American colleagues are going to be getting the software and or therefore the hardware for this, and that maybe downstream later on after it's proven itself and they've worked out any kinks, it's going to be removed from the Australian or Shanghai built versions. So be interesting to see what happens in this space, and I'll keep you updated. I'm going to finish today's show with a little bit of a rant, or more of a debrief, bit of a counselling session for me, perhaps even you, about Victoria passing the world's worst electric vehicle tax. I've discussed this quite a lot on this show, and I'm not going to give it any more of my time, effort and money to actually cover, because I've probably done a better job up here. Today is going to be more about what happened, what went wrong, and what we can do about it. Okay, so for my new viewers out there, just a very high level summary. Essentially, this tax means that from July 1 this year, you're going to have to pay 2 to 2.5 cents per kilometre travel if you drive either a plug-in hybrid vehicle or electric vehicle respectively. It's wrong on so many levels, especially in a country where electric vehicles are still very expensive. Up until recently in Victoria, there was no subsidies other than $100 off your registration per year. The Victorian government recently, I think, to sweeten this whole deal and to get it across the line, introduced a $3,000 one-off payment, discount rather, on electric vehicles up to $67,000, but that's only to 20,000 people. The conversation, or rather, I think, this is probably one of the issues that went wrong here. Tim Pallas, the Treasurer of Victoria, put it out like this, that, people who drive electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid vehicles, which I now try to call ZLEVs, they don't pay for their fair share of roads because, they don't fill up with fuel. And when you fill up with fuel, you're actually paying fuel excise and GST. Fuel excise, people believe, actually pays for our roads, but the thing is, they don't. And look, again, I've covered it very well up here. The reality is that fuel excise goes to central consolidated revenue, and the government spends it, hypothetically, anywhere they want. It's a bit of a furphy, and this misinformation that got out there was swallowed by some senators who actually supported this bill. I listened to the actual legislation being read and by the Senate, and all I could hear was each of these different senators pulling up really random issues around why electric vehicles should pay this because of, they need to pay for the charging infrastructure, or they need to actually help pay for charging points, or they need to pay for the $3,000 subsidy, or they need to... There was a lot of issues out there when the discussion in the speeches to Parliament that had nothing to do with the monetary tax behind it. This is purely just a tax grab. And to penalise, there's only 7,000 electric vehicles in Victoria. To penalise those 7,000 vehicles right now, when there's so few of them, where electric cars are so expensive, is just poor timing. The ones who actually got the legislation and understood the cost it's going to bear on motorists, still actually did a little bit of a tap dance around the whole fuel excise thing, and if these people aren't paying that tax, they need to pay something. But the thing is, in Australia, we actually pay a lot of taxes, and any one of them could actually pay for roads. That means if you walk, if you ride, and you don't even use a car, you are paying for this monstrosity. It's grossly unfair, I get that, and we all pay for things to actually help support society, but it's very much on the nose that when you've got people like Tim Pallas premising this tax that people with ZLEVs don't pay their fair share, completely negating the fact that actually, we do We pay stamp duty on our cars, we pay council rates, we pay GST, we pay registration, we pay lots of taxes that pay for roads. And I find it very insulting, and it makes me angry to say that I'm not paying for my fair share of roads. I am. So here we are, legislation's been passed, and let me just shout out to those senators who actually let this go through, because 6 months ago, 11 out of 12 of the senators who hold the balance of power in our upper house, that's the Senate, they actually said this policy would not get through. But here we are, it's been successfully passed, and that's because someone's actually been swayed by it. So, if one of these following party members is in your area, I would like for you to please let them know that you're not very happy with them, and that moving forward you might perhaps not vote for them. It's just a suggestion, I'm not telling you to do it. It might actually prove a point. Alright, so here we go. Labor's tax was passed with the support of the Reason Party, Animal Justice Party, Transport Matters Party, Darren Hinch's Justice Party. So what can we do about this? We need to keep campaigning, continue to bring to the forefront everyone's mind about this tax and why right now in 2021 it is not something that we should be introducing. Australia is more than 10 times behind other developed nations with electric vehicle adoption. Going electric is going to mean that we decarbonise our world in which we live. More than 20% of emissions come from cars. Cars also, with petrol and diesel, cause $18 billion in healthcare costs per year. We have these fossil fuel companies who do not pay any tax whatsoever. We have fuel subsidies that actually aren't used to fund roads. We need to get this information out there because a lot of people don't understand these issues. Just remind them that you are a taxpayer too. So what can we do about this? First and foremost, speak to your local politician. Let them know that you do not support an electric vehicle tax. What's happened here in Victoria could now easily be replicated in South Australia, who's delayed this legislation to 2022, and also New South Wales, who probably might, who knows, put this back on the table again. Other states and territories now have seen it successfully pass in Victoria, so you watch, it will happen as well. Declining fuel excise has been occurring since the 1990s, and it's only going to get harder for the federal government to continue to raise money through that stream, especially as more electric vehicles come online. So what the states and territories are doing here is taking a tax onto themselves and charging motorists way above what an equivalent vehicle should pay in taxes. What else do we need to do? We need to educate friends, family and work colleagues. Start maybe the conversation like this. Tim Pallas said that electric vehicle owners don't pay for their fair share of road users because they're not paying fuel excise. But they've introduced this new tax, so from July 1, I'm going to be paying for my share of the roads and you drive a petrol car, right? Oh, well, so that means I'm paying for the roads and you aren't. They will look very confused, they might scratch their heads and they'll go, no, I pay fuel excise. And that's where you've got to educate. You got to tell them, fuel excise doesn't actually pay for roads at all. It goes to central revenue, as does all our other taxes, including this new electric vehicle tax, by the way. It's going to central revenue. So they got to spend it on roads? No. They probably got to spend it on other things. I don't really care. There's no fairness here. There's no equity here. People who live in regional areas who have to travel massive distances are really going to be paying for this. I think we can all agree. We all just want to pay for our fair share of things, right? And so fuel excise is probably the first thing that needs to go here. We all need, just like New Zealand is introducing, an actual charge based upon the number of kilometres you travel, with discounts or concessions for those living in regional areas. Those who actually have heavy vehicles should also pay a bit of a multiplier on what they're using in the roads. If you actually drive a truck, your damage to the roads is up to 20,000 times that of a vehicle, a small passenger vehicle. Again, there's no equity or fairness here, is there? and at a time when we're trying to decarbonise our world, improve the air quality through the elimination of PM 2.5 and fine particulate matter that clogs up our lungs and causes $18 billion in healthcare costs per year, electric vehicles are that answer. And to actually make the cost of buying an electric vehicle that much higher and that much harder for people is a disincentive. It doesn't matter if you've got a little dangle of a carrot out here for 20,000 people to get that $3,000 subsidy. That'll be gone before we know it. And then all these other people, they'll be paying a lot of money and more than people who actually drive petrol cars. So the math, the equation, the finances just aren't going to work. And people will stick with petrol cars. So I'm very disappointed. I'm angry. I'm trying to move on past this. I will probably not touch on this subject for a while now. But nonetheless, yes, look, right, put a comment down below. What are your thoughts on it? What are you going to do about it? That's what we need to do now, okay? We're licking our wounds. I wrote yesterday a bit of a piece on this and I decided I wasn't going to proceed with it because it was just so angry. And at the end of the day, we need action in this space. We need resolution. And we can scrap taxes. Legislation can be undone, unwound. And I'm hopeful that this will eventually disappear. Or I'm hopeful the equalizer will be the elimination of fuel excise. But my goodness, the research I've done into this, it's actually been on the table since the late 1990s. And federal governments of both sides of the house, both sides of politics rather, have stalled on and they just don't want to do it. And with this buffoon over here and his FFS strategy, basically it's do nothing, he doesn't want to touch fuel excise with a 10-foot pole. So we need some significant change here. And even if you drive a petrol or diesel car, you can appreciate the issues that I brought up here today. So, hey, let's call it for this video, shall we? If you've enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing. Again, leave me a comment. I do want to hear from you. I read them, I really do. If you want to support the channel, on Patreon over here, you get early access to news, polls, and behind the scenes that you just don't get on YouTube. And otherwise, you be good and you be green.